Hey kids, this is Brian Walsby, back with my mustache. And like I said earlier, I want to put up some more content on my little channel here. So I thought I would start that off with making this video here talking about this book that just came out that I was fortunate enough to be a part of, and here it is. It's hot off the presses. It's called Weird Music That Goes On Forever, A Punk's Guide to Loving Jazz. See it? It's written by a friend of mine named Bob Suren, who I met a long time ago through punk rock circles. He put on a double negative show in Florida when he lived at the time. He also put out this book called Crate Digger, I believe through the same publisher. The publisher is Microcosm Publishing, which is like a kind of a cool book about his journey through collecting punk records and the pitfalls and highs and lows of his regular life thrown in there on top of it. But anyway, so this just came out. Bob wrote this book, and the premise basically is, a lot of punk rock types eventually figure out a way to get into jazz music. Getting into jazz music is kind of similar to getting into, if you go from like rock music or whatever, it's kind of similar to things like getting into Bob Dylan. Like after hearing about, well, there's something to this guy that people like, but I just haven't figured it out. I haven't discovered it. Bob Dylan would be a likely artist that also is kind of hard for some people to get into, especially if you come from like a youth culture movement like punk rock. But anyway, the tone of Bob's book is actually really funny because it's written like, he's not claiming to be an expert on jazz music, but it is written as sort of like a dip your toe into the waters of jazz music sort of thing. And that's basically what it is. And he asked me if I wanted to do like a bunch of illustrations for it. So that's my cover. It's a play on the 7 Seconds Walk Together, Rock Together cover with a jazz band playing. The punkers are going nuts for it. There's a foreword, 2 forewords. An introduction by Circle Jerks drummer Lucky Lehrer, who knows a thing or two about jazz, and the Zero Boys, Paul Mahern. He's also a producer and engineer, I believe. And he also wrote something for it too, and he obviously knows a lot about jazz too. So Bob told me about this about a year ago, about his idea, and he just kind of sent me chapters that he was writing. And again, the whole take on this is just introducing, here's one of my drawings of Art Blakely. The whole idea basically is, he's not claiming to be like an expert on jazz. He's just writing something that is meant to sort of, there's Ornette Coleman. It's just written in a humorous manner, comparing punk rock and hardcore and that sort of music to the various offshoots of jazz music, and how there's a lot of parallels between it. And it's really good. He did a really good job. Jazz is definitely something I had to learn to like, because I just didn't get it. I've loved music all my life, but like I used to read Mojo magazine when it came out, and I read about all these jazz artists and people like that. So, I knew some of the names and stuff, and then I went out and made my typical purchase of jazz records from like various eras of jazz music that I kept hearing about, one of which, of course, was Kind of Blue by Miles Davis and A Love Supreme by John Coltrane and stuff. And at the time, this is about like 25 years ago, I just didn't get it. It was just, I wanted to like it, but I just didn't get it. I would wash dishes to it and do housework to listening to that stuff, and I tried really hard, but I don't think I was ready for that yet. And there's some parallels of that sort of attitude, like it's not like you wanted to dislike it. I just couldn't figure out a way to get into it. And then I think what kind of got me into it was, besides a few of the offshoots of like punk rock sort of music from people that did have elements of jazz music in it, like, say you know, San Pedro's Minutemen, you know, they obviously like jazz a lot. That was like really foreign to me, you know, as a punker that wanted to hear fast stuff. The Tar Babies from Madison, Wisconsin had a huge jazzy streak in a lot of the material. They had a record called No Contest, and I love that record. And I know some of the influences on that must come from a lot of the people in this book, but I just didn't know that at the time. So I had no problem liking that stuff. And I think when I started to get into it for real was being force-fed lots of Electric Miles Davis by the Melvins when I used to work for them, from Buzz and Dale, because they always played tons of Miles Davis, the electric stuff, the freak out electric stuff, you know, Bitches Brew, Big Fun. And from there, I kind of started to realize, yeah, I'm kind of getting into it. And even funnier than that was, I kind of realized, like, this music is way more punk rock than most punk rock, which also is covered in Bob's book, by the way. You know, the attitude, the freedom, all the various subgenres and styles and movers and shakers. There's a lot, you know, like, who would be a good person? Sun Ra, or, God, I forgot it. The late Pharoah Sanders, you know, those guys were total punk rock. I mean, it doesn't sound like this kind of punk rock, but it's real punk rock. And, you know, from the Melvins playing me a lot of that stuff, I just kind of took the ball and ran with it. And, you know, like Bob says, and I'll say this also here, I'm not a jazz expert. I know what I like. It's probably not much. But I've grown to really enjoy some of the stuff that I really do like a lot. And some of the those very same people are in here. And Bob was nice enough to ask me to do illustrations for the inside of this book. And it was a lot of fun to do. There's something like 30 drawings in here, you know. Let me try to find something else real quick. Dave Brubeck made the cut. It's nice, you know. It's this is not written to be like supposedly a thorough kind of look on the whole take of jazz music. It just sort of talks about getting into jazz from the viewpoint of being into rebellious, so-called rebellious punk rock kind of music or whatever. And it came out really good. So when he told me about the idea, I was like, this is going to be like a labor of love sort of thing to do. And it just got released, or it's going to be released, like I think in a couple of weeks actually, but you can get it online now, and I'll put a link to it at the end of this. But anyway, I just wanted to talk about it a little bit, talk about Bob's book and my illustrations, and there was even a Captain and Tennille drawing in the book. Remember Captain and Tennille? Some of you might. Anyway, nice pocket size. It was a pleasure to be a part of it. I just knew this would be a cool thing to do. Sonny Rollins. So yeah, so there you go. So like I said, Weird Music That Goes On Forever, A Punk's Guide to Loving Jazz by Bob Suren, with illustrations by me, and other stuff by Lucky Lehrer and Paul Mahern. So yeah, there'll be a link in, you know, the end of this thing. And you should check it out, because it's good. Anyway, that's all. Thanks. Bye.